of the exciting things about native gardening is how much you can learn. For example, here is a plant called a blue gentian, and this gorgeous little specimen never actually opens, and it relies on several bumblebees, maybe 2 or 3 bumblebees, that actually come and open up the leaves and climb in and remove, as they are eating the nectar, they remove pollen and take it on to the next flower in order to, or another plant, to pollinate things. And that's why we need to look after all our insects, because every one of these plants, the turtlehead, the culver's root, nodding onion, these coreopsis, vervains, all have species that are absolutely dependent on that flower sometimes. They're not, some of them are generalists, but some of them are specialists. And so I try and plant for pollinators. If I'm looking to fill a new space, I'll go to Heather Holmes' book, which is Gardening for Pollinators, and I'll say, what will attract in partial shade, relatively messy soil, what would be a good plant to put in there? And I'll look it up and I'll find, here's one that has 5 or 6 animals that are dependent on it, so I'll try and find that plant. Another thing that I think is really important about having native plants is finding a source for native plants. Our garden centers have not yet got the message that we need to be planting plants that are genetically suitable for this area. These plants and the insects that benefit or pollinate them and utilize them have evolved together. And bumblebees and wasps and flies have particular shaped mouth parts, and so they need to be with the exact flower that they have evolved to eat from. So we can't just take a cultivar from the garden center.
And what is the cage around the parsley about?
This is one of the areas I have found swallowtail butterflies in the garden. And so I protect the swallowtail from the birds, and it can also leave and go and pupate wherever it likes. So I just pick up this little contraption. I think many different things could serve the same purpose. And the little bags, I have collected native plant seeds for a number of years because I know that Paul O'Hara provided me with plants that were genetically local. And so these are seeds that are valuable to have in this area. I put little organza bags around them. When the seed wants to, it goes to seed. And when it's all dry, I pick the bag, for example, like this, and the seeds all fall down into one corner. And we just need to clean them and give them away to people. Or actually, I give them to some commercial vendors too. It's really important not to go to regular garden centers for your native plants. We need the genetic strength of local plants. And so, fortunately, places like Carolinian Canada's website will often show a list of where you can get native plants in your area. And big thing about native plants is developing a community of friends who know things. A woman named Jean Jacobs has been my mentor and teaches me masses of things, as well as Joanne Tunnicliffe and all the people at the Naturalist Club.
You have a lot of diversity in your environment here. I was wondering if you could tell us about it.
I certainly can. In my Carolinian Canada course with Joanne Tunnicliffe, she really emphasized the role of abiotics in a garden. Abiotics are all the things that are needed by the flora and fauna that are inert, such as stones, wood chips, water, obviously from my bird bath, areas for shelter. And so I really emphasize ferns. I think I've got 5 or 6 different kinds of ferns. I didn't know ferns would grow in full sun, or that they'd stay green in the middle of winter like a Christmas fern does. So they're a great addition to the garden. And the interesting thing about the big stones that I was able to bring in, they have become their own little ecosystem unto themselves. I had thimbleweed come in on this plant, and it planted itself the next year over here in the garden. And you'll see this one's 3 feet tall because it's in good soil and gets good water. This poor little thing is in a crevice on a rock and is only about 2 feet tall. And it's wonderful to see that kind of realistic representation of nature here. As Doug Tolmie says, we need to bring nature home. And I am so happy when I can come outside and just experience my garden, and I don't have to go to a park or a conservation authority to experience what it feels like to be in a very colorful fall setting or in a cool forested area. And my garden is actually, although it looks really big, this is, I think this is about 40 feet by 100 feet in this front yard. And I've just planted every little space I can, and I keep things very small. When I'm trying to make a representative wet garden, I do it where the bird baths are. I also have things like butterfly muddling dishes, which are dishes where butterflies can put their feet into mud because they need that. They absorb minerals through their feet. And if they don't have that, they will not be very fertile. And if bees don't have uncovered ground, they can't make a nest in the ground. So I don't use wood mulch anymore so that there's bare soil for the native solitary bees.
Thank you for sharing so much knowledge with us today on different native plants and all the importance of native gardening. I was wondering if there were any final tips or tricks you can share with us today.
Oh, thank you, Kat, for the questions. I am a relative beginner, and I don't even know Latin names yet. But when I have a new little plant, I often put a cover like this on it because I have chipmunks and a number of things I didn't used to have in my garden because of the new plantings. Also, if a plant doesn't work out in a particular way, look it up. Get yourself a good resource book like Heather Holmes or Lorraine Johnson's. Any of her books are great. And find maybe a better zone or place for it in your garden, whether it be moisture or shade, because that plant will really want to grow for you, and I think you will enjoy it. So good luck with your gardens. I'm loving mine.